And that is your chief concern. Doubt, and that is your chief concern.
Of course
Doubts
that is.
about the integrity of the institution.
That's right.
Now, one of the things that happened after your letter and press conference is that the Chief Justice has begun the practice of publication of the roster. But it emerges that all PILs, as well as all appeals against decisions on PILs taken by high courts, as well as what's called all accountability matters, all of these are going to the Chief Justice of India,
Right.
not to you, not to any other judges.
Not necessary. He's the master of the roster. If he chooses to do that work, let him do it. If he has the energy to handle the entire work, let him do it. I am not complaining about it. I never complain. On the other hand, I have reached a stage, well, I would like to be doing the minimum work for the next 29 days and get out of it without straining myself.
What about something else? I noticed that none of the top 4 judges of the Supreme Court, who also happen to be the 4 judges who wrote that letter, are handling important matters presently before the Supreme Court, such as the Ayodhya case, or the Aadhaar case, or the land acquisition case. Is that just a coincidence, or is it deliberate?
I don't know. You should be asking this question to somebody else. At any rate, I told you, I am least interested in any one of these cases.
Do you ever get the feeling that the Chief Justice keeps you out of important cases deliberately?
See, I always believed from the beginning that there is a great way of doing small things, there is a small way of doing great things. Whatever is assigned to me, I can handle it. I can, see, if you look at my own judgments, some of those things were not these high-fly cases, but I suppose I produced reasonably good, I mean anyway, it's for the senior members of the bar to make an assessment the day I demit the office, what contribution I made or I didn't make to the system. That's a different matter. But I never believed that importance of a judge depends upon the nature of the case he handles. The importance of the judge.
You don't care what sort of case you get.
Yes, I bother more about what I contribute to.
You don't care if people turn around and say important matters are not being given to Justice Chelameswar.
I just don't care.
We're coming to the end of the 1 hour interview, and before I start taking questions, I want to touch on 2-3 small things. What is the state of the collegium today?
Sorry?
What is the state of the collegium today? I'm talking the 5-judge collegium.
Yes.
4 of you wrote the letter and went public. Is the collegium therefore divided 4 versus 1? Has it become dysfunctional?
How did it become? In fact, just 2 days back we made certain recommendations. Last week we made certain recommendations for some high courts. If the collegium has become dysfunctional, how was it possible to make these recommendations?
So despite the fact 4 of the judges wrote this letter, you're functioning.
Look here, Mr. Thapar. None of us is fighting for some private property here. We have differences on certain institutional issues. So that doesn't mean that we are not able to see eye to eye. Business is going on, we are taking decisions, recommendations were made. In the last 10 days, for about 4 high courts, recommendations were made.
Okay. Recently,
Yeah.
you've written a letter to the Chief Justice, copies of which were given to your brother judges,
Yes.
drawing attention to the inappropriate way the central government directly contacted the Karnataka High Court Chief Justice, requesting an inquiry into allegations against a district and sessions judge called P. Krishna Bhatt, without routing the matter through the Chief Justice of India. And you've also in that letter asked for a full meeting of the Supreme Court to discuss this issue. Clearly,
just a little correction. I didn't say full meeting of the Supreme Court. The full court on the judicial side.
A full court on the judicial side. Now, clearly you believe that the central government has acted wrongly. My question is, how serious a matter is this? Can you explain to us how serious a wrong is this?
This letter is self-explanatory.
But the letter has not come fully in public domain. It's only been quoted in newspapers. So explain to us, how serious a lapse is this by the central government?
See, that particular name was cleared by it was recommended obviously by the High Court Collegium some 3 years back, roughly around 2.5 years back. If I remember right, it was March 2016. March 2016. After all the procedures, the Collegium, Supreme Court Collegium, that is the first 3 judges of the Supreme Court, relevant in the context of the appointment to the High Courts, cleared that name, forwarded to the government, and I was not a member of that collegium at that point of time. It was a collegium headed by Justice Thakur. Other honorable members were there. It was cleared, it went to the government. A lot of things happened, correspondence, a lot of things happened in that matter. The matter came back again. A second time, the collegium recommended it. This time it was a collegium headed by Chief Justice Kher. I was the 3rd member of it. We reiterated after taking all the relevant factors into consideration, including the present Chief Justice of India. He was the number 2 in that collegium. Chief Justice Kher, Justice Deepak Mishra, and me. We reiterated. If the government still finds that there is something to, because I don't want to enter a debate on what is wrong or what is right in that matter, still finds, necessarily I believe the communication should be to the Supreme Court of India, not directly to the Chief Justice of the High Court, because the Supreme Court had cleared it twice. Therefore, I thought it was not constitutionally proper for the government to have. And then, unfortunately, the Chief Justice of Karnataka chose to act on it. Therefore, I had to write on.
I'm coming to the end. Let me ask you 2 questions. Are you at all apprehensive that Justice Gogoi, who was one of the authors of the letter, who was the letter of November, who was also one of the participants in the January press conference, might not be elevated to Chief Justice when Justice Mishra retires? Are you at all apprehensive about that?
I am not an astrologer, Mr. Thapar.
But are you worried that what has happened to earlier justices, i.e. gets superseded, might happen to Justice Gogoi?
I hope it will not happen. If I repeat, if it happens, it will only prove that whatever we said in the press conference is true.
Finally, Justice Chelameswar, I'm going to ask you a devil's advocate question.
Okay.
Many people have applauded you and your colleagues for going public. But the truth is, almost as many have criticized you and accused you of breaching judicial discipline. How do you respond to the criticism?
Anybody who enters a public office can never avoid criticism. And the criticism, as far as we four are concerned, that we went to the press. I was really wondering, where did this principle come from and what was the context in which this principle came from? Judges were not expected to debate in the press about their judgments. Well, I come for a meeting like this, I go somewhere and there's obviously press would be there, they report something. Is it prohibited? Similarly, when we're talking about the administrative problems, we were not breaching, at least I believe, or we four believe, that we were not breaching any one of those time-honored principles that we should not address the press. Now, these were principles which were evolved in countries where the job of the judges was simply judging. The Indian judiciary and the Indian constitutional system took a different turn. We have today, for the last 25 years, the authority to decide upon the suitability of judges advocates for elevation to the high courts or judges for elevation to the Supreme Court. These are all virtually administrative functions, and these kind of functions were never discharged by those countries, those courts and those countries where this principle originated.
So you have no qualms or second thoughts about going public and speaking out at that press conference, or even going public and speaking out tonight?
Yeah.
Can I quote to you guideline number 9 of the Restatement of Values of Judicial Life adopted by the Supreme Court in 1997. The guideline says, a judge is expected to let his judgments speak for themselves.
Right, that's what I said.
He shall not give interviews to the media.
About what? About the judgments?
But you can talk about other things.
Huh?
But you can talk about other things.
Why not? Why not? If you are quoting that, please read it. What does it say?
He shall not give interviews to the media.
Suppose somebody asked me, you asked me the question, first question, that's what you asked me about NJSC. I refused. Look here, I wrote it. It's for you to form your own opinions on that. My views are there on record. I am not going to justify it or defend it anymore. I may be right or wrong.